Welcome to Cellstore Anilox inspection software. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take measurements from your Anilox cylinder and store those measurements into a report. The first thing that we need to do is we need to obtain our image. So in order to get accurate measurements from our Anilox, we want to see the cell sizes as large as possible. Now I've chosen the ×20 lens here, which gives me a full cell in the center of the screen, so I can clearly see all of the walls around the cell. I've selected ×20 in the microscope, and I've also selected ×20 on the desktop here, which will tie the calibration in with the ×20 lens. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to check our cell depth. Now we're going to do this by focusing down to the bottom of the cell, zeroing the gauge, then focusing to the top of the cell, and this will give us our depth reading. So the first thing is to focus to the bottom of the cell. Now I always focus down to the bottom of the cell, then through the bottom of the cell, and then back, there. Now, as you see the bottom of the cell coming into focus there, I'm happy that that's the bottom of the cell. So what I need to do now is I need to zero the depth gauge. So at the moment, the depth reading is 2 microns. I need to get that to 0. So I go to the depth gauge. On the front of the depth gauge is a small yellow button. I'm going to press that once, and that's going to zero my depth gauge. So to the gauge, 0. Okay. So now we've got 0 microns in the reading. Now I'm going to focus on the top of the cell. So I focus up the cell walls until I get to the top of the cell. Which I'm happy is there. And now we have a reading on our depth reading there. We have now 33, 34 microns. I'm happy with that reading. So now we can move on from the depth measurement and we can go to measure the cell wall and the cell width. So to measure the cell wall, we're going to use our B cursors and we're going to place those around the cell wall. Now, the nature of the way the Anilox is manufactured, you are not going to get straight edges on your cell wall. So what we're looking for is we roughly take an average through the edge of the cell wall, like so. If we experience any wear on the cell walls, the difference that we will get in the thickness of the cell wall will be quite vast. Those small differences there that we've taken for the average, they're not going to make a difference if we were to have problems with wear on the top of the cylinder. You will see a great deal of thickening. We won't be in the region of maybe a micron or two. We would see a considerable thickening. So the averages for the cell wall and the cell width are perfectly acceptable. Cell width, we do the same. We take our A cursor and we're going to place that through the average of the wall there on that side. So now we have the internal measurement there, which is the cell width, and then the cell wall. So we're happy that we've got all our measurements. We have our cell width, we have our cell wall, and we've got our cell depth. So now we can go ahead and create a report. So I'm going to label the report with the roll number. So I need to add a roll number to these specifications. So I'm going to just add a roll number like so. And I'm going to update that information, which is going to send it over into the specification sheet. So I click update, and now that information has gone in with the other specifications. Go ahead and create my report. Like so. Now all that information, the image along with the cursors and all the specifications are now transferred over into the Excel spreadsheet. We have some manual entry boxes here to add any further information if required. And you can see there now we have our image, which shows us exactly what the cell looked like, where we place the cursors. Here we've got the roll number to confirm, the date which the measurements were taken, and below we have all the measurements that apply to that cylinder. So that's how we create the report for each cylinder. So we produce one of those reports for each cylinder we have. If we want to test a cylinder a second time or third time, or you may decide to have periodic testing, whether that be after cleaning or a selected amount of time or hours used, you can go and you can enter additional data into the report that you've already created. So if I want to do that, I can take the information for the purposes of this, because I don't have a worn or used cylinder. So I'm just going to change the image slightly to highlight the difference. Move the lines a little as well. Now I'm going to add this information. This would be the second test of the Anilox. I'm going to add that information to the report that I've already created. So I click add to report. I choose, yours will be labeled with the roll number. Then I'm going to save that data. Yes, I want to overwrite it. And now again, all that information is now being transferred over into the Excel spreadsheet. So we can see here that we've added an additional page to the Excel workbook. If I go back to the first one, that's the first set of details that we saved. The second one contains the first set of details along with the second set of details. If we were to produce another sheet, the first set would travel along with that and would also be entered into the third sheet. This is so that we can have a direct comparison immediately. As soon as we've saved the specifications from our current saved image, we can see very quickly how the image looked the first time we took the measurements and what they look like now. So we have visual representation. As I said, if you experienced wear on the surface, you would see the cell walls would be much thicker, and that would stand out quite clearly. As well as that, we can also check with our cell width, cell wall, and cell depth measurement. So now we've saved all that data into our Excel spreadsheet, and we have that information now for further usage. So they would be my recommended procedures for checking and maintaining your Anilox.